Let's see. Let's unmute this thing. Good morning, you guys out there. Hey, I hope some people are joining us. I know we got a few people. I appreciate it. We're kind of competing with RJ, which I didn't plan it that way, but it's the way it worked out. But you guys go over there all the time, so you can learn something about pickups today. But I'm honored to have Aaron Campbell from Rumpelstiltskin Pickups online, and I think this is his first interview, and I've been working with him since 2014. I read about him on some forums. I started looking and said, what are good replacement pickups? And his name kept popping up and talking about what a good job he did. And so I want to say the first thing I did was send him an old Telecaster pickup in 1963. It had gone shorted out twice, and I said, "Man, there's something I got to fix this thing." So he took it completely, stripped it down, took the magnets out, buffed them off, took the rust off. It was just the rust would cut the wire, and he fixed that thing, and it's in my telly right now. Works great. But without further ado, I'm going to bring Aaron on. I'm working with his new software, so bear with me, but I think it should work pretty good. Here's Aaron. Let me see. I got to get him on here. There he is. Good morning, Aaron.
Hey, good morning, Stan. How are you doing?
Good. How
You
are
know what I
you?
see in the
Huh?
corner of your room is that famous basement that your channel is famous for. It's looking really nice and crusty over there, man. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I got it on wide angle just so that you can see the
I like it. Yeah, it's cool.
and the other one right next to it's a '59 basement, but it was retweeted. I just like that old tweet. The more beat up, the better.
I know, man. It
It
looks
sounds
so
better
cool.
too. Old tweet sounds
Right.
better.
Yeah, man.
So, is everybody? We're just going to do this interview, and you guys, we'll answer questions and comments at the end. Hey, SF, appreciate you guys showing up. I wish I knew
Yeah,
everybody's name, but
thank
yeah, we'll take the questions at the end, and I'll just start out with. Well, let me see. I've got Aaron. Aaron's camera option is not. Well, why isn't he showing up? That is strange. Maybe I might have to go back to just Aaron. This is not making sense. Huh. Hold on a second. I told you this was new. All right. Oh, that didn't work. All right. Well, let me go back to Aaron then. I know that works. All right. Well, let's see. What made you think you could compete with all the big guys? I mean, what set you off on the pickup path?
that's a good question. I I never really thought of it that way. Um, I didn't I didn't think about the competition aspect. When I get an idea in my head to do something, I'm just going to do it regardless of what may or may not happen consequentially. And but what got me into it, I had tried some other aftermarket pickups, and some of them were great, but I never, I always wondered if there was something I could figure out that would make them even better, And I guess, some people go down the path of just trying all the aftermarket pickups, but I stopped after trying a couple, and I thought, nah, I'm just gonna figure out how these things work. I've always wanted to know how things work. So it was just as much curiosity as it was anything about making something that could compete with the big guys. Maybe I didn't think, maybe I thought I was so small that there would be no way I could compete. Therefore, it wasn't an issue. It was just, this thing I was trying out, but it turned out to work pretty good. So
Well, did your work at Callaham influence your decision?
yeah, absolutely. I worked for Bill in 2006 for a short while. And I think I was only there for, I don't know, 6, 8 months, but I learned so much in that time. Um, it's really kind of incredible to think back on how much I learned about just manufacturing. And um, I did a lot of polishing there too. That was interesting. I was basically a polisher, but I made pick guards and I did stuff like that. But Bill was making whole guitars at that point, and he made everything but the pickups, and so part of it was, um, I've seen how everything's made except the pickups. So when I left there, I thought, well, maybe I'll figure out this one piece that I haven't done before, and yeah, so that was part of it. But just learning how to think like a builder from working with him was just really enlightening, for sure. And quality control. I mean, Bill's you know desire and ability to make things just so well and consistently, um, also set the bar pretty high for me.
Yeah, he's pretty amazing. He's really a big name out there. I know probably half most of the people that watch today have some type of Callaham product on their guitar.
Right. Exactly. They're great. Yeah. Bill's making like the best stuff out there, really. I mean, he's just, you know, he is devoted to quality above everything else for sure.
Yeah, his ordering system could use an upgrade, but
Well, mine
I mean,
could
I think I
too.
had to fax in all my orders.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I remember those would come in. Yeah, there was, it was old school. Let's say that he was making old school guitars, but he was ordering things came in the old school way too. So no,
Uh,
I get that. I can relate to that because, you know, Bill didn't have many employees, and I, I work alone. So I have just myself and my own time to devote to certain things, right? And so for me, it's all making great pickups and pickup quality. So I drop, you know, emails sometimes, and I probably don't update my website as often as I should, and things like that. So certain things can fall behind a little bit when you're obsessed with the product. So
oh yeah, that's hard. I mean, I know what you're
yeah,
talking about. Keeping up
yeah,
with the software is a job in itself.
right. It
Well,
evolves
let's.
so quickly.
Oh, yeah, it's. I'm looking at my questions here.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Callaham. I know he helped you a lot. That's what I think. After you fixed my tele pickup, I I think the first pickups I bought were the Gypsies, and then the Experiences. And I
Yeah.
still love the Gypsies. For some reason, I see the Gypsies popping up more and more on people's guitars. Not as much the Experience. Is that what you experience over there? Is it Gypsies are more popular for some reason?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting as far as the people who have come to me. Um, I don't know if it's word of mouth or my marketing or what, but most people who come to me sort of have a disenchantment with overwound pickups. Most people that come to me are at least in a place in their journey with sound that they've tried the hot pickups and they don't like them. That they want to try something that's vintage wound, more open, clear. And the Gypsy is the most open and clear set that I make for Strat. And so when people find out the Experience is like the hottest Strat set I make, and they're not that hot, but they sort of shy away from them. Most people kind of want, a little more scooped mid and those airy highs, I think, But some people have ordered the Experience, and for their setup and their guitar, it's perfect, So
Yeah,
it
that
definitely.
yeah, I've noticed that just exactly like you described it, airy and
Mm-hmm.
very light, and it gets these really cool bass. The bass notes are it's hard to describe, but they
Yes.
sound great. To me, the Experiences sound a lot like his Woodstock concert. That was
Mm,
a pretty hot guitar what he was playing, and that's what
yeah.
it reminds me of. I said this sounds a lot like Woodstock, so I love them in my left-handed Strat.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, well, we'll get into that as far as staggers go, because that was another reason I was attracted to you, was that I was looking for a left-handed stagger that Fender would have done for a left-handed guitar. So when I flipped it, it'd be exactly the same as what Jimmy
Right.
had. And
Right,
you were
right, right.
able to do that. I think some other people offer it now, but you had it out there from the very beginning. So
Yeah.
that was really helpful. So I got those left-handed stagger, but let's see what. Well, we'll go into your. I've got all your website, a lot of it up here,
Cool.
and here are the Millers. Can you see the Millers? Do you see
Let's
the
see.
Millers?
I'm
I'm
not
not
seeing
seeing
any
any
You're not
changes,
changes,
seeing
but
but
yours. Okay. Well, this is. I've got your photos from the website,
okay.
okay.
and the left is the Millers. I'm sorry you can't see that, but
No, it's okay.
yeah, it's what I was going to get at here, and we'll go past the specs. But I've got your slide up for the staggers,
Okay.
Okay.
and you got vintage stagger standard, left-handed, low G, and flat pole.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, what made you go with a flat pole? Because I know Lawler uses that quite a bit, or exclusively. What's the difference there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
that's a
good
good
question.
question.
So
So
the
the
flat
flat
poles are
poles are
really,
really,
well,
well,
let's
let's
back
back
up a
up a
little
little
bit.
bit.
You
You
know,
know,
when you're
when you're
using a
using a
fixed
fixed
magnet
magnet
length
length
in
in
a
a
Fender
Fender
style
style
pickup,
pickup,
you're
you're
kind
kind
of
of
backing
backing
yourself
yourself
into a
into a
corner
corner
with
with
that
that
design
design
because
because
you
you
can't
can't
change the
change the
string to
string to
string
string
balance
balance
like you
like you
can on
can
a
on a
P90,
P90,
right?
right?
P90,
P90,
you
you
can
can
adjust
adjust
every
every
pole.
pole.
Um,
Um,
humbuckers,
humbuckers,
one of
one
the
of the
coils, you
coils, you
can
can
adjust the
adjust the
poles.
poles.
But a
But a
Fender
fender
pickup
pickup
with
with
rod
rod
magnets,
magnets,
I
I
mean,
mean,
some
some
people
people
push
push
them
them
around,
around,
push
push
their
their
magnets
magnets
around
around
inside the
inside the
bobbin.
bobbin.
I
I
don't
don't
recommend
recommend
that
that
because the
because the
coil,
coil,
unless it's
unless
a
it's a
molded
molded
plastic
plastic
bobbin,
bobbin,
the uh,
the
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 magnets
magnets
are
are
touching the
touching the
coil
coil
and
and
could
could
potentially
potentially
disturb the
disturb the
wire or
wire or
break
break
it
it
if you
if you
start
start
pushing them
pushing them
around. So
around. So
that's the
that's the
challenge,
challenge
is
is
uh,
uh,
offering
offering
some
some
staggers
staggers
that
that
cover
cover
most
most
people's
people's
needs to
needs to
get a
get a
reasonably
reasonably
balanced
balanced
string to
string to
string
string
output.
output.
And
And
so
so
flat
flat
pole,
pole,
you know, as
as
times
times
have
have
changed,
changed,
more
more
people are
people are
using
using
flatter
flatter
radius
radius
fretboards
fretboards
and
and
lighter
lighter
strings
strings
with
with
unwound
unwound
G
G
strings.
strings.
And
And
really,
really,
when you
when you
get
get
like
like
10
10
inch
inch
radius
radius
and
and
beyond
beyond
and
and
modern
modern
strings,
strings,
flat
flat
poles
poles
actually
actually
balance
balance
better
better
string to
string to
string.
string.
Um,
Um,
the
the
vintage
vintage
stagger
stagger
came
came
from,
from,
you
you
know,
know,
I
I
think
think
I
I
think
think
Fender
Fender.
probably put on 12s at the factory in the 50s. They probably had a wound G. Um, and so the vintage stagger was basically made to fit that old 7 1/4 inch fretboard radius and big strings with a wound G. Um, Most people don't play that way now. they have flatter radius, lighter strings, unwound G. So the flat poles balance a little better um, for modern players. Although most people just see the vintage stagger, the low G, and it looks right to them, and they've played that their whole life, so they just order that anyway, and they're used to the any imbalance, you know.
Yeah, that's what you got a chance to look at my 1964 uh,
Oh
black
yes,
bottom, and I remember I never noticed it, and I think you pointed it out after you sent them back. Is that I think the G, it was either I'm pretty sure the G had been pushed down, and I had never noticed it. One of the magnets had been pushed down, so I nervously, I think I talked to you and you said, well, yeah, you should be able to move it, but you might cut the wire or something. And I was terrified, but I pushed it because I didn't want it down that low.
yeah,
And it came up and I didn't hurt anything. But I mean,
good.
that's Abigail Ybarra. I was going to ask you about her and these
Yeah.
winders at Fender. Do you know anything about her?
I I I really only know what everyone knows from her little limelight. Uh, what was it, 10 years ago ish? Um, yeah, I don't really know anything aside from what I've seen in the videos or heard Seymour talking about or this and that. Um, but I have played a couple of her hand wound pickups and they're very nice. So yeah, she's a legend as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'd read somewhere that Hendrix specifically requested her pickups, and there's all these myths out there. Either way, I mean, here it is. You say you got the chance to play them, and
Yeah,
this is my coolest strat. But
that's
you
a
said
great strat.
you've never heard pickups like that, and it's hard to duplicate, huh? And
Yeah, those are, I haven't exactly had, scores of vintage pickups come through here, but I have had some and yours I put yours in my strat to just try them out when you sent them in and they're amazing. I mean, they just sound great and there's something very unusual about your set in that uh the bridge pickup is the hottest in the set, which is what people do now, right? And that happened occasionally in those days, but I think yours were around something like 5.9 neck and middle, and then like 6.4 in the bridge, and they're all original, And I thought, wow, that's serendipity for you to get a little boost on the bridge pickup in a vintage set.
well, yeah, well, actually the neck, and that's one thing I asked about it was super low. It's like down in the 5.3 ohm.
That's
Remember?
right.
And
Yeah, and
you'd mentioned that it may have a short somewhere, and I was going, "Oh no!" What? I mean, I didn't think it would keep working, but I would.
I have had some pickups with partial shorts. There's weird stuff where they just dropped in number, but they worked. It's funny when I was early in when I was learning about when I was testing, winding patterns and things like this. Um, I took a Telly bridge pickup bobbin, probably the one of the first ones I made, and what I did was I needed to find out how many turns equaled how much resistance. And so I would put on, 8,000 turns, and then I would shave the wire with an X-Acto blade so I could take a measurement. And then I would put some nail polish over it, let it dry, and then I would keep going. And so every, 500 turns or so, I would take a measurement um, to just see where it was at. And I think I did that maybe 5 or 6 times on that pickup, and it ended up from all those times I shaved it, it had a short of some kind in it. Like it dropped in numbers, but it was one of the best pickups I'd ever made too. It was strange. I I might have to find out how to make all my pickups short out a little bit, just the right amount.
Well, yeah, because I mean, hardly anybody gets orders pickups down the 5.3 range, 5.3
No.
K.
And the coil on that pickup is full. I mean, it doesn't look like they had too few turns, so it made me think like maybe it's just a little off or something. Sounds
Yeah,
great.
but it worked perfectly. That's where I get my Hendrix fuzz thing and my Hendrix Octavia thing, is because it matches up with those effects way better
Yeah,
than a hot pickup. The hot
yeah,
pickup is kind of overdriving the fuzz in the Octavia, but
right.
it really does work well with everything, and that's kind of one of the secrets I finally figured out. That's the secret to my original Hendrix tone, was that guitar.
Yeah,
Even though everything he used was probably hotter and new at the time,
yeah, right.
but yeah, that that kind of brings us to our last fiasco, which the '66 gray
Oh,
bottom pickup.
how's our hospital patient doing
It's
after it
doing great.
released?
That's what I wanted to talk about now. Is should we rewind all vintage pickups, because that thing sounds better now?
Yeah, right.
You know,
That's,
is it the
I mean,
wire? Maybe is it the new wire that made it sound good? I mean, or
that's
you,
a
like you said, it's the way you wound it. Which why don't you talk a little bit about winding? They have scatter winding, machine winding, too tight, too loose.
okay. I can tell you off the bat, you know, almost absolutely tight pickups to me just sound and feel bad. Um, you can wind a coil pretty tight before the flat work will really bend, and it sort of chokes the tone and the response, in my opinion. Um, which brings me to another point. So much of what I set out to do with pickups, we talk about pickup tone, right? But I don't think there's a necessarily adequate discussion about the feel, because so much of, to me, why I like a pickup or why I don't like it is how it responds when I pluck a string, which is something that you can't really experience through a sound clip, you know. Um, and some pickups I found very difficult to play. It was a lot of work to get a sound out of, and that's part of what I wanted to do, was find something that uh, multiplied my efforts, you know, didn't diminish them like some pickups can. Um, but back to, winding, I tried, different turns per layer, mixing the turns per layer as you go, machine wind, hand wind, tight, loose, weird patterns like building the coil up in sections. I mean, and the conclusion I came to, I I definitely don't like tight wound pickups. If you go too loose, they sound kind of unwieldy and too open and airy and sort of diffuse, I guess would be a good word. So, really, I just sort of aim for the middle. There's everything's sort of about balance and compromise. We live in a world that there's only trade-offs. So, tension is very important, really. The pattern is important too, but like I was going to say, the conclusion I came to is that the materials actually have more of an effect to my ear than a winding pattern. And I know that a lot of people, and myself included, when I was learning about these things, I thought the winding pattern dictated most of the tone, um, and it has effect for sure, to me anyway, but not nearly as much as materials. You know, if you get Alnico 5 from one foundry and try it versus another foundry, the tone can change immensely. So that sort of changed my thinking at one point to where I was like, you know, I need to find a place where I like the materials, because that makes up that's like the biological foundation of a pickup, right? You can tweak it a little bit with a winding pattern,
pattern,
but
but
materials
materials
are
are
huge.
huge.
Yeah, I'm showing a photo of your magnets
Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
and your spool of wire. You know, on your spool of wire picture off your website, on the left you got a bass pickup, which I said you said you make those by request. But on the
Yeah.
yeah.
right, you got these pieces of metal with holes drilled in them, and I couldn't figure out what those were.
Oh,
Okay,
okay,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
That's
those are
those are
keeper
keeper
bars
bars
for
for
P90s
P90s
and
and
humbuckers,
humbuckers,
which
which
you know,
you
I
know I
still
still
make
make
P90s by
P90s by
request. I
request. I
haven't
haven't
added
added
them to
them
the
to the
site
site
officially
officially
yet,
yet,
but
but
those
those
are
are
some
some
keeper
keeper
bars that
bars that
I
I
had
had
water
water
jet
jet
cut
cut
for
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 my
my
pickups,
pickups,
and
and
I
I
don't
don't
know that
know
I'll
that I'll
make
make
humbuckers
humbuckers
again
again
anytime
anytime
soon,
soon, but
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 P90s
P90s
I
I
do
do
still
still
make
make
upon
upon
request.
request.
Well, so does that stay? Is that part of the pickup? It stays in there?
Yes,
Yes,
so
so
basically
basically
what you
what you
have
have
is
is
you've
you've
got your
got your
base
base
plate
plate
and
and
your
your
two
two
magnets
magnets
that
that
lay in
lay
the
in the
base
base
plate,
plate,
and
and
then
then
they
they
touch
touch
that
that
keeper
keeper
bar
bar
on
on
either
either
side,
side,
and
and
then
then the
the poles
poles
for
for
the
the
pickup
pickup
go
go
down
down
through
through
the
the
bobbin
bobbin
and
and
then
then
through the
through the
keeper
keeper
bar,
bar,
and the magnets rest against the keeper bar, which magnetize the poles. So you don't have the magnets touching the threads of the poles. They have they have holes through the keeper bar that they go through, and it sort of helps keep things organized, and the magnetism will go through the keeper bar. That's, you know, in the P90 and humbucker world, keeper bar material like 1010 cold rolled, 1018, blah blah blah. They they will try different materials to get different sounds. That's the thing that's a little bit different about Gibson pickups. There's a lot more metal parts involved, and therefore there are a lot more alloys to tweak the sound with. You know, whether you use screw poles that are 1018 or 1010 or whatever, keeper bar, base plate. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can tweak the sound there. Whereas Fender pickups, it's magnets and wire.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was so much to those things. Yeah, I probably wouldn't tackle that one.
Yeah, right.
A lot of
There's
various.
a lot.
Well, what I mean, how I can't understand why they don't make the same stuff as they made back then. I mean, how
No.
hard is it to take the same recipe that they've used for 100 years on a magnet that Fender used and do it again? What's the
Mm,
problem? I mean, that's the story of the whole vintage market. You know, well, they don't make them like they used to. You know.
that's true. Yeah, that's part of what sort of ignited my search into different magnets. And when I realized Alnico 5 here at this place is going to sound and feel different to one from this place, I had a guy, I think his name was, I probably won't pronounce it right, but it looked like Antti Kartu, I think was his name, and he was, I think, from the Netherlands. Haven't been able to get in touch with him again, but at some point he sent me a broken Fender Strat pickup that was probably around the same time as yours, like 60, early 60s. And I rewound it and I thought, wow, in all these, I think this was probably 10 years ago. I thought, wow, I've been winding pickups for some years and I can't make anything sound like this. What's with these magnets? And so that sort of got me on that path of why are they different? And I talked to I think he's a president of one of the foundries in that are left in America. I think there's only 2 or 3 magnet foundries in the U.S. anymore. And his name's Ed Richardson, at Thomas and Skinner, and he was such an interesting guy and full of knowledge. I think he's even testified for the industry before Congress. I mean, he's super knowledgeable, and he told me, that the raw materials they get now are just different. I mean, certain things have been recycled. They're actually more pure though now, I think is what he told me, the raw materials. But then the processes have changed, as technology has moved forward. So things have changed. But I think Thomas and Skinner, Arnold are still making magnets, and I don't know about Permanent Magco, but Arnold and Permanent Magco, I think, were the two that Fender used back in the day. So, yeah. Oh, I think I lost you. I don't hear you.
Nah, I'm double muted. All right.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I had some echo going, so I was trying to solve that problem. But um, so that's the main people, the manufacturers that everybody uses now.
I actually think that very few people use magnets made in the U.S. Just because they're just so much more expensive. I think most people are using one of the many overseas magnet makers, um, which some of which are really good and have really advanced technologies for consistency and all that. But yeah, it's a bit expensive. That if you're going to use magnets made in America, um, there are higher minimums, and they're, I don't know how many times more expensive, much, much, much more expensive though than getting something overseas. So um, that's there are some people doing it though. Yeah, for sure.
So there's only really two choices: Alnico 3 and 5 for most pickups.
Um, so that's a good question, and I've spoken to people, a few whiners that I trust, and have sort of palled around with a little bit over the years. Um, some of the earlier magnets used at Fender that they had analyzed didn't really neatly fall into any of the categories that we have now. I think it's MMPA categories for magnets. So it's hard to pin down exactly what was used when, uh, but mostly everything after the mid '50s settled on Alnico 5, at least at Fender. Um, I think Alnico 3 was used in Telecasters up to the mid '50s sometimes. But some I've heard, some guys talk about having broadcaster pickups analyzed, and uh, they couldn't exactly tell what Alnico it was.
Well, what's the difference between 3 and 5? Just certain elements, recipe, or
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a little rusty on my magnet science, but there are various, I guess, measurement criteria methods they use, like BH max and coercive force and things like that. Um, but how they make them, I think I'm trying to remember if Alnico 3 is unoriented or not. But certain magnets like Alnico 5 is exposed to a magnetic field as it cools in the casting to orient the particles and inside of it. And so how fast it's cooled, or what it's exposed to while it's cooling, the balance of materials, most of the magnet is iron, but then you have the remainder, which aluminum, nickel, cobalt. There's usually maybe some copper or something in there too. I haven't looked at those breakouts for quite a while, so I might have something confused in there, but um, yeah, just the balance of materials, um, how they're melted and cooled, um, things like that, just give different characteristics magnetically. But practically speaking, which is more important to me is how they sound in a pickup, And Alnico 3 to me is a little bit sweeter, um, and probably a little stronger in like the fundamental frequencies. Alnico 5 is a little bit more complex. Um, and good Alnico 5 has that classic sort of throaty, gutsy sound in a Strat or a Tele that I love, which is pretty classic Fender.
Well, speaking of polarity, I just the last few years learned how to put a compass up there to see which direction the magnet was going.
Yeah, yeah.
Does it make any difference? I mean, what difference does it make if it's north or south?
Oh, yeah. That's something that's been argued on by pickup winders on the music electronics forum. Um, I can't remember what I read about that, but you're getting into some real nuance there, though, whether a pickup behaves differently depending on the orientation of the polarity or the magnet. I've not really bothered with that because that falls in that less than 1% sort of area.
Well, can you
So,
mix and match those? I mean, you have a north and a south and a north, or
within one pickup or within a set
yeah,
of
but like
pickups?
next to each other. That's probably not a good
Oh,
idea.
yeah. Um, I think you could. That's a good question. I'm definitely not. I'm not an electronics engineer of any kind, so my experience is mostly practical. But yeah, different strings with a different polarity magnet, but mixed into the same signal of one pickup. I mean, I'm sure that would cause a change. But I feel like I've even had some pickups come in that had a magnet that was south while the rest were north or something like that, and no one really said anything much about it. Um, but I've never experimented with that, so it's only speculation on my part as to what effect it would have. So I don't know.
Well, yeah, that brings up another point. Remember when I sent you the 66 for repair, I put in the Lawler and it was, I guess, reverse wound from the others for the other 66 middle and
Right.
bridge. So I had to go back because it was so out of phase or whatever happened. It didn't even hardly make a sound.
Yeah. Right.
So I had to go flip the black and white wires so that it would work. But was that just because it was wound a different direction? Reverse
Yeah.
wound?
Yeah. Yep. So basically, if so, what you mean is that it didn't hardly make a sound when you combined it with the middle pickup.
Yeah, yeah. Here it is, the flat
Yeah.
pole.
Yep.
Lawler.
So you have a couple scenarios where either if you're going to combine two coils or two pickups, like in a wiring of a Strat, um, they both either have to be wound the same direction and have the same polarity, or one of them has to have both the opposite polarity and a different winding direction. Winding direction, assumes that you're going to be using the black coil start as ground. So, a humbucker, it's not really the winding direction per se, it's the direction that the electrons are moving through the coil. And so that's why it works to switch those leads. Because really, even though the coil might be wound a certain way, if you switch those leads, you're just sending the electrons the other direction, which is how you can break or maintain phase between two pickups. So your pickup there either had the same polarity as the middle pickup, but was wound a different direction, or it had the magnets in the opposite polarity, but wound the same direction as the middle pickup. Either way, you're going to have to switch the leads or switch the polarity. Oh, I think you're muted again.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep this darn echo out.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's not as simple as you think when you start swapping these pickups. Some people say, "Oh, maybe I'll try this one from this set and put this over here, mix and match," and then you find out they don't sound right.
Right, exactly.
But that brings me to reverse wind, reverse polarity, and I've always, with your pickups, always requested non-reverse wind because I said, well, whatever Fender did, that's all I care about is what they did, and they didn't really care about it, right? Nowadays, well, they do it now to kind of buck some hum, right?
Yeah. That I don't know when they first started doing that, but that's definitely the case now. With Strats and Tellies, one of the either the middle or the neck in a Telly set and a middle in the Strat set will be reverse wound, reverse polarity, just so you get some hum canceling in the combined positions. Um, Back in the day, though, it's like Strats in the vintage days came with three-way switches, right? They didn't want you to even. I read that Leo was not a fan of the 2 and 4 sound, the in betweens. So they just kept it with the three-way switch. So you were never using more than one pickup at a time. So, um, yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. It wasn't didn't even need to be an option back then.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a whole bunch of difference. I don't really notice that much noise or hum or anything in the 2 and 4 position with non-reverse.
Yeah, well, it's going to have the same hum, relatively as any of the single positions, and that's why I've never made reverse wound middles in my personal sets, is because I figure 3 out of the 5 positions are going to have hum. Unless I live in the 2 and 4 positions, it's not going to really make much a difference. There's going to be hum. So I don't really bother. Now, I don't do it for sound reasons. There are people who definitely believe that reverse wound pickups cancel out some of the sound and change the tone, but that's one of those sort of minuscule differences that I think if you don't want the hum, it's worth having it, and if you don't mind the hum, then just don't go with a reverse wound.
Well, yeah, that's exactly why I didn't want to do it. I mean, if you're losing any kind of tone or something, I want to stick with the vintage specs.
Sure, yeah.
Well, it looks like we're getting a lot of questions here.
Oh, cool.
Well, I still got a few more things in the interview.
Yeah, let's.
When you mentioned, I didn't even think about it when you mentioned winding the wire very tight. which you said
Yeah.
on this 66 rewind, you would do it a little tighter. And I didn't even think that you could get it so tight that you collapse the bobbin. I mean, it'll start warping. I guess you
Oh
could.
yeah.
So you said we'd go a little bit tighter because I didn't want to pot it. And then we got into
Yeah.
this whole potting question.
Right.
And I said, I want to, if they weren't potted back in the old days, I don't want potting either. So we didn't pot it. It squealed,
Yeah.
but it sounded great when I didn't have a high gain pedal on or something. It sounded great. And I said, well, I don't want to lose that. It's very touch sensitive, big open sound, very
Yeah.
clean and clear. So I didn't want to lose that. And that's what got us into this potting video. The first one, a disaster, and the second one,
Yeah.
a total success. But yeah, the first one was pretty comical. I mean, when I ended up pulling out this blob of wax and I go, well, I got to get this stuff off of here or it's just going to be there permanently.
Yeah.
And
Right.
when I started wiping it off, I totally forgot about those hair wires in the front and broke the one. And I almost had a heart attack.
But you broke the right one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because if you had broken the ground side,
Oh, yeah.
much harder to fix. I probably would have just rewound it. But you broke the finish side, so I just had to take off a turn and then resolder it. So I had it fixed in 2 minutes. So
Well, that's good. But I mean, is flash potting? I asked you about flash potting. Is that a thing? Is
oh
that
yeah, yeah. If you get that wax really hot, I mean you can damage a pickup. I've put it in. I've put Fender style pickups in really hot wax, and if you lacquer dip the bobbins before winding like Fender did, you can actually bubble the lacquer that's on there if you go too hot. But yeah, you can get it really hot, dip it for 30 seconds and then pull it out, but you don't want to leave them long when it's hot.
Well, yeah,
And then
we didn't go over the 150 degrees. I
that's
left it at
fine, yeah.
that. But you're saying you could actually damage the enamel on the wire with a hotter temperature?
Um uh, you can, well, probably. I don't
Well, you
I
said
don't
bubble.
know.
What were you talking about bubbling? Where's the bubble?
So when when Fender made pickups traditionally, and the way I do it is you assemble your bobbin by putting magnets in the flat work, and then you dip that assembly in lacquer, in nitro lacquer, and it just insulates the magnets a little bit, and which can help with rusting and stuff like that. But I think the thought was, uh, to insulate the wire, any shorts and cracks in the wire against the magnets, because as soon as one uh, touches a magnet, it's dead. So that lacquer that you dip it in, if you pot too hot, it'll bubble that lacquer. So it's no good if you go that hot.
Well, you go into the different types of potting material because we got into a big argument over what was better. You know, some people were talking about epoxy, and I said, "What? I would never
Yeah,
want to use epoxy."
I had a big brand pickup once that was definitely epoxy potted. I mean, it was like a solid rock at that point. It was kind of interesting, but no, so vintage Fender, in some books I've read, um, referred to a sort of industrial wax. I don't know exactly what. I'm sure it was paraffin based. I mean, I don't know exactly what mixture it was. Um, but when I started out, I have to give a shout out to Owen Duffy. OC Duff pickups. You ever heard of them?
No.
Okay. Owen's a friend of mine, and he actually helped me a great deal when I very first started making pickups. he was very kind with his time and sharing information. And he's the one that I got the 80-20 mixture of paraffin to beeswax from. So that's just what I've always used. You know, I've heard that when paraffin cools, it can shrink, and that adding the beeswax helps with that, and it also helps lower the melting temperature, so you don't have to go so hot. I don't I don't know how true any of that is. I started with 80-20 and it worked. So I've been doing it ever since. So that's been my recipe, but there certainly there were some Fender pickups, I think only in the CBS. No, that's not true. There were early Telecaster neck pickups that were apparently lacquer potted, which is interesting. Um, for some reason, not the bridge pickup. Um, but then CBS, I think, might have done some lacquer potting. Um, but then again, your 66 was wax potted. So if there's anything I can tell you about what I know about Fender is that different things were tried at different times, and it's impossible to really say it was this way, you know.
Yeah, well, that's what when we started talking about lacquer, I said, why don't we just use lacquer? It's so much simpler. Or and some people talk about shellac, which I like a lot, but not in
Yeah, black is great.
potting. But then you brought up the point, at least one, of not being able to repair a pickup if it's lacquer potted, or it's not as easy. Because you can sometimes, like you said, take a couple of winds off and find
Yeah.
the broken spot in a pickup and not have to rewind it.
Yeah, you can do that. It makes it harder. But lacquer basically is like almost like glue, though, at that point, you know. And so when you're peeling back the wire, it's very likely to break when you're peeling it. And wax can do that too, but you can heat wax to make it easier to peel. Um, Lacquer pickups are definitely harder to peel turns off of, in my experience.
Yeah. So, well, that brings me to that. Lawler, I know you've seen this, that tape he uses. And
Oh yeah.
what is, I mean, to me, that's a great feature, but does it change anything or is it just a protective tape?
It's just a protective tape, and really and truly, I should do the same thing. It's a good idea because uh, people sometimes mishandle pickups, you know, and they make mistakes. I've had pickups come back, and people have been like, "Oh, I don't know, this new pickup isn't working," you know, and they send it back, and there's obviously a gouge where a screwdriver has gone into the coil, you know, and I'm going, not that tape would save it from that, but it helps, you know. It's actually a good idea. Um, so I should
Mm,
probably do it, but I haven't in 15 years.
yeah. Well, Fender never did it. I wish they would have because it would have saved my pickup, I think, because I was being careful, but not careful enough.
Yeah, stuff happens, man. It's just, you
Yeah.
know,
I
they're
think with
friends.
me, I assumed that the pickup cover was across the wire, and I was just prying up on the pickup cover, but apparently the
Mhm.
pickup had fallen down out of the cover, and I was
So it was
still able to get
exposed.
to the wire.
Yeah,
But thank you for fixing that because that
of
was
course.
that was a rough period.
Yeah, yeah,
But
man.
I
Well,
mean, like I
hey,
said, the great part is, and it just kind of breaks or blows the myth that all vintage is great. You've said you've heard some really bad vintage pickups. It's really a crapshoot sometimes.
yes, absolutely.
I mean, just
It's not
because it's
always
vintage Fender doesn't mean it was good. And that's why
no.
most of the time, if somebody finds a good one, they're not going to sell it. So
Right.
that's the sad part. A lot of the stuff out on the market is stuff that people just didn't like. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't. it just wasn't great. It wasn't good. So it's a crapshoot for sure. I've had
Yeah,
some.
but you say in '66 on they probably used a machine to wind that.
Yeah, so apparently Fender, when CBS took over, they saw these people hand winding pickups, and coils have been machine
machine
wound
wound
for a
for a
while.
while.
So
So
um, at
at
that
that
point,
point,
so
so
they were
they
just like, hey, why are we doing this? Let's just machine wind. And so I think they had like a mechanical cam based winding setup for their coils, which just carried the wire back and forth. Nowadays, of course, you've got CNC. You can do anything you want basically with winding a coil. You can make up patterns and repeat them and do all sorts of stuff with CNC.
Well, like you said, when you did it, you probably didn't wind it as tight. And all I know is the pickup sounded better. So something happened, which was a pleasant surprise.
Uh huh.
I'm thinking, shit, I should probably get all the other ones rewound too. At least in the
Yeah.
'66. But
It's tough to say. I mean, I do know people who have sent vintage plain enamel wire to be analyzed and compared to the new production, and it's slightly different. Um, so, I mean, consistency back then being what it was, maybe the wire that was on those pickups wasn't as good sounding. It's hard to say. Maybe the new stuff sounds better. Like, I don't know. I've never wound anything with new old stock wire, so I can't compare. But um, it sounds like we had a favorable exchange when
yeah,
we put on wire.
when you looked at that old coil, which you sent back, and that'll
Hmm.
be in the archives forever. Could you tell anything from it? Pretty hard, and you just cut it off.
Just cut it off. It was obviously old plain enamel. I could have measured it with a micrometer, but I stopped doing stuff like that years ago, just because I knew I would, if I found a difference and I wanted to replicate it, getting custom wire made would, cost me probably tens of thousands of dollars. So I just didn't ever go down that route.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of pedal makers and probably bigger makers. Everybody's trying to have to go to get custom stuff made, and like you said, there's a minimum order, and it's
It's
putting
huge.
people out of business.
Yeah. No, that's always been a struggle. Um, if you want custom or great materials and you're someone like me who is one man who can only make so many pickups a day, a year, um, you might be putting out many thousands of dollars, and it might take you 10 years to go through those materials. Um, it's a lot of debt to go into without being able to turn it back into profit very soon. Oh, I think you're muted again, Stan.
I got friends that are trying to make the cotton wire in the tweed amps exactly the same, and capacitors exactly the
Yeah.
same, and you got to order like 20,000 of them or
Yeah.
some, maybe a hundred
Uh-huh.
thousand.
Yep.
But I stuck a picture. I think it's your winder. It's kind of a big old copper colored looking thing.
Oh yeah, that's actually my CNC winder. That's the tailstock and the faceplate um of one of my two winders. Yeah.
Oh, so you actually have a CNC winder?
I do. That's a very cool winder made by a company called UK CNC over in England, and it's a tiny little winder they've made with stepper motors that's computer controlled, and it's got nice gold anodizing on some of the surfaces. It's a great little tool that I use when I want to replicate CBS CNC wound patterns. I'll use that because I can match the turns per layer to what Fender was doing in those days.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe we should open up. I got a lot of questions here that I need to go back and I think I can post these up. But can you see any of the comments?
No, I can't see. Let me click over here.
Yeah, there you should have
Oh,
you see them?
I see them. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, let's see. I highlighted one. My echo. Oh, okay. One of them was for my strat. Wanted to know that, let me see if I can put this up here. Yeah. The fuzzy monsters. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Let's see. Yeah, yeah, I see it.
Okay. It's just, what is the pop value of my 64 strat? That's doesn't have anything to do with pickups, but I thought I'd answer it. Originally, it was almost 325K ohms because just worn out, or maybe that's what it was. It's supposed to be 250. And VIP pots they analyzed so many of them, and they came up with the magic number of like 285, 290K. So I've got a VIP volume pot in there now, and I told them to go as close to 300 as they could get. I think it's at 290. But that answers that question.
That's interesting. Very cool.
Yeah, let's go through a couple more here. We got Michael from France. We got people from all over the world. Somebody's going to call the doctor. Dissects everything, Jimmy. Most of the top coil nests. Oh, well, while I'm looking at these comments, here's an interesting one about a duosonic. Can you see that? Had a switch for hum canceling because one coil was reverse wound.
Yeah, so there were, I guess, a few instances where Fender did have I mean, if you look at a P bass, one coil is wound one way with different polarity. That's so the P bass pickup hum cancels. So there was some of that happening at Fender, and I guess I don't know much about duosonics, but it looks like SF knows about them, and yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if there were some different models with stuff like that. That's pretty cool.
Here, I'm gonna throw up some more pictures from your website. There's your telly pickups, the original Black Knight, and Jouster. If I was gonna get a set for my 63 telly, which one would you recommend?
For your 63. What pickups do you have in your 63? The originals?
Yeah, well, the bridge has been rewound by you, and I think the neck is original, but I had to pot it because those things squeal like crazy. But yeah, they're the original 63s.
Cool.
I mean, I would put in the White Knight set. That's just that.
Let me see. Oh yeah, I've got that up here. White Knight set. Yeah, it looks like 6.6K. 6.6K in the bridge and 7 in the neck. White Knight. Enamel wire. And then let's see. I wanted to. Are you still making the Mustang pickups?
By request,
yeah.
And what's different about those? I was kind of curious about the design because it's kind of a strange looking single coil with those little plates on the side, or that whole thing that sits in.
Those are
Jaguar pickups.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if someone wants some Jaguar pickups, I can make them. Yeah, they had a claw that surrounded the pickup and sort of fit into an indentation on the cover. That's a pretty neat thing. I've heard that Leo had sort of had a thing for shielding, and that the base plate on a tele
pickup was shielding, and the ashtray on top was meant to be shielding, and the cover on the neck pickup of a telly was meant to be shielding. I don't know how much of that's true. So maybe the claw is also shielding to help with noise. But yeah, the Jaguar pickups are interesting. I mean, they're very close to Strat pickups. There's slight differences in the flat work. Same with Mustang. Mustang is a Strat pickup basically with flush top magnets with the flat work to fit that holeless cover on top.
I'm looking at the comments. Let's see. Playing in Rumpelstiltskin, and always he is the guy here. Live in Brazil. Hello,
Gabriel. Oh, yeah.
You see, there's Gabriel's comment.
Cool. Brazil, yeah.
And he, who's it? Oh, I live in Brazil. There's a company called Malagoli that makes them there.
Cool. That's cool. I'll have to check them out.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of, they don't make things like they used to. I wanted to throw this out because I watched the video yesterday. It's kind of off topic, but Kenny Wayne Shepherd, all the Hendrix guys are really into the Univibe clones. And he has a video out where he's got 3 1960s original Univibes.
Wow.
And only one of them sounds good.
Right.
I mean, the other two, those are the two that they would sell. This has got it, and these two don't. And those are original. So even with the original, just back to the Fender, crapshoot thing where you don't know if you're going to get a good one or not. It's the same with everything back then.
It's the same with everything. It's the same with recording equipment. I think it's the engineer and producer Joe Ciccarelli he found one Neve 1073 that was better than all the rest, and that's the one he uses for vocals. And I mean, you could say the same with microphones. There's George. I think George Massenberg there's a U47 at Blackbird in Nashville that he says is the best one he's ever heard. It's the same. It's just the world we live in. There's old school manufacturing. Things came out a little different. Things aged differently, I guess. That's just the reality.
Yeah, and it's pretty sad because, like I said, everybody keeps the good stuff. So buyer beware when you're out there. Oh, this is the dream guitar, and then when they get it, they go, maybe I'll sell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's another question from Dean D to you. Can you see that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never heard of Evans style pickups.
Yeah, I haven't either. I'm actually not. I'm not familiar. I'm afraid I can't answer your question, Dean. But I'll check into them.
Well, who?
Evans.
Bill? Is it Bill Lawrence? What's he or Bill? There was a
Bill Lawrence. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something yesterday about a just random thing I saw probably on Instagram where I guess he died a while back, but they were just talking about how great his stuff was. And
Bill was cool, very knowledgeable about electronics and very smart, and actually a smoking jazz guitarist too.
Well, here, I mean, Michael in France, I know Michael well. He builds his own Univibe clones, but he wants to know the best model pickups for the Hendrix sound, and that's a tough one, huh?
That is a tough, right? I mean, Stan, that's what you've been doing since I've known you, is finding out those nuances, and you have to say which Hendrix sound, right?
Yeah. There's so many, and I guess that's one of my talents. I don't know, or I've developed it over the years, is to be able to listen to a song and say, well, that's this guitar, or that's this, of my guitars, I can pick the one that would probably sound the closest. But
Right.
they all, I mean, I keep the experiences as when I really want to drive the amps, and the gypsies for all that nuance in between stuff that you might want to get. And so it really is. I mean, how many different strats did he use? That's about how many different types of pickups you would need.
Yeah, right.
Because
I mean, yeah. For me personally, I really like the gypsies because they have a unique sound that I don't think other sets have. And yeah, that recording of Hendrix live doing like a Rolling Stone.
yeah, he's got a bunch of them, but
Okay, so there's only one that I can remember because I haven't looked in a while, but there's one where his strat just sounds unbelievably clear. It's really something, and it's just beautiful, clean sound. And that to me reminds me a lot of the Gypsies. It's just that open, clear, uh, not heavy in the mids kind of tone, and just sounds it's unique. So that's my favorite.
yeah, and you might remember the Beckham brothers. He said he
Yeah.
finally got his gypsies. And I tried for a while to convince him. I said, "Ed, you want those experiences? You want the experiences?" And he said, "I'm afraid it'll be too hot." And
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a Marshall that's made. He had it cloned from some of
Wow.
the guys in California that are made his amps or modded his amps, and so he's a huge Hendrix guy. But he went with the Gypsies. He loves them. That's what
Yeah.
he's using now, and they're out there touring.
Yeah, man.
Maybe not a
Cool.
full tour, but they're in Texas right now.
Yeah.
But SF Evans are highly collectible. He's in Canada. He died, but Jeff Healy, here I'll put his comment. This is SF. Jeff Healy endorsed Evans.
Oh.
Does that ring a bell at all, or I
No,
don't know?
I'm just reacting
Yeah,
to.
what it stacked? What's stacked humbuckers? I don't.
Oh, cool. Stacked humbuckers. Yeah. So these, it's funny. I make Fender pickups, but when I play, I do take tellies out on gigs for jazz, but mostly I'm playing my arch tops, and I've just never totally gotten along with humbuckers. And I sort of theorize, and other people sort of theorize that you sort of lose something with the two side by side coils, sensing different areas, parts of the string length, and canceling out something. Some people say stacked buckers sound better. So instead of a humbucker that's got two coils side by side, you put them on top of one another. That way, the pickup is still sensing that one area of the string length rather than what is it, almost an inch apart or something. Um, so they do end up sounding
That sounds
different.
like a better design to me. I wonder why they wouldn't go with that originally. Does it take a deeper route on all the guitars?
I think it probably does, and I think a side by side humbucker is also probably a little easier to design and assemble. Um, Stacking uh, might. I've never made one, but I think there might be some more challenges to that, but I don't know. It's pure speculation on my part.
Yeah, Dean D, he's been making a lot of comments. I throw his up here. It's beeswax blend rules and it smells mo better.
Yeah, right. It does smell good.
Does it?
He's
I
right
didn't smell it. I'm gonna have to go smell it now. I didn't.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's when I get these big blocks of beeswax, and I open it up and break it off to put in there. It smells great.
What does it smell like? Honey?
A little bit, yeah. There's
Oh,
kind
that's
of
fun.
yeah.
Well, I know you got things to do. Well, here we go. SF's got, and that's a good question. I mean, I don't want to keep everybody for too long. I'm enjoying myself. Do you have to go anytime soon? I mean, we maybe 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, let's keep going for a few minutes
Yeah,
here. That'd
because
be
I didn't even think about the lipstick pickups, but Stevie Ray played those, and what are those made out of? Have you ever looked at making those?
never, never have. Um,
I
they
mean,
sound cool.
it's just a pickup stuffed in like a lipstick container, isn't it? I don't know what's
I think
different.
so. Yeah. I've never pulled one apart. I've never had one come through here. They sound cool, but as soon as I see a pickup that has um, metal work like that, I kind of shudder a little bit because I know I got to get that stuff custom made and high minimums. It's like we talked about. So I haven't really explored those. But can a Strat pickup sound like a lipstick? Um, Probably not. You know, it's so much of the sound of a a pickup is just dictated by its design. Um, it's a bar magnet wrapped in wire. Yeah, um, you would basically need to somehow convert a Strat pickup to a bar magnet wrapped in wire. Is really what it boils down to. Um, Someone very smart could probably do that. I
Yeah, like you
don't know if it's me though.
I don't know if anybody's making those now. I'm sure somebody out there is doing it. But well, I think we answered this one. SF are the modern big company pickups wound with CNC machines. I would think that's yeah.
Oh, yes, for sure. Other than special, like I think you can still order a hand wound pickup from Seymour, but it probably costs you $300 or something. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. I know it'll be an upcharge. I shouldn't say how much. That's pure speculation, but you know, most big companies are definitely winding on a programmed machine. I mean, how can you beat that, right? If you're looking at sales, you can put 6 pickups on a machine and it winds them perfectly in 5-6 minutes. You put in if you're winding by hand, man, you got to pay 6 people to make those pickups in the same amount of time a machine can do it. It's just it just doesn't really I understand it. It doesn't really make sense from a business standpoint with the technology we have now. So,
Yeah, that's a SF was saying the lipstick ones are Alnico 6. We're talking about magnets, and we didn't even say anything about 6.
yeah, there's Alnico. I don't know about 6, but I know there's 2, 3, 4, 8. Um, maybe there's A6. I'm not sure. I've used 2, 3, 4, and 5. Um, I haven't tried Alnico 6 though. Um, that's interesting though.
Oh, I know. One question. Do you have a preference on your pickup heights on a Strat, the way you
Mm.
adjust them?
Um, I kind of go on like a guitar individual guitar basis, or type of strings. And I have with all the testing of pickups I've done over the years, I stopped measuring at some point because I could just eyeball it. So when I put pickups in now, I just kind of eyeball it and look at the distance, and I know I'm in sort of at least the zone where it'll sound good to me. And then I just listen and go up or down depending on what change I want.
I guess Fuzzy Monster said Duncan and GFS are still making lipstick pickups.
There you go. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we've been on here an hour and 20 minutes. That's probably good for now. I sure appreciate you cooperating.
Well, thanks for having me, Stan. This is I have successfully been almost anonymous for 15 years. So now
yeah, that's what I gotta try to get you out of that anonymity or whatever. But yeah, it's a pleasure meeting you. I mean, here we've known each other for 8 years, and this is the first time we met face to face.
True, we have corresponded a bit.
A lot of emailing.
Yeah, we have, man.
And you say you're still gigging, right? You're out there.
Yeah. Yep. I am out there doing restaurant gigs. Just playing jazz. Usually with an upright bass player. So make a few bucks, have a little fun, right?
Yeah. What's your gear? What your amp and your guitar that you take?
Oh, that's a good question. My main guitar is an Eastman archtop. It's an AR 371 CE, which basically looks like a Gibson 175. It's like a cutaway 16-inch archtop with a 24 and 3/4 scale neck or scale length. That's the guitar. And for a long, long time, I was using my friend Mike Stone at Mule Skinner Amps. I use his, I think he said it's a 7-watt Tweed. It's like a Princeton, but it's got a 12-inch speaker in it. It's just amazing sounding amp. It sounds wonderful. So check him out sometime, Mule Skinner. I don't have a cart, and I usually have to lug stuff a few blocks. So I actually switched to a quilter for now. It's like the little Super Block US, and it weighs like a pound. So I'll just throw that on a cab that my friend gave me, this Bell and Howell cab that's got like the latching door on the back, so I can put my tip jar and the head inside, and then off I go. So it's a little bit lighter, which is good. But the Mule Skinner, it's hard to beat the sound of that thing. So
Yeah, I guess they have a website, huh?
maybe I think he has a Facebook and maybe an Instagram. That's a good question. Yeah, he's got an Instagram and a Facebook. I wonder. Yeah. I guess I can send you this link, I think.
Yeah, better not. I bet if I try to do it now on this thing, I'll lose you and everybody.
Yeah, we'll get all messed up.
I had it messed up right before we started. Like, oh no, what do I do? So, yeah, I'll look at it though. But that's good. It's nice to have a nice. I've always wanted a, what do they call, Princeton reverb type amp. I'd have an original. I saw a guy yesterday playing one, and they just have the perfect sound.
You know who the guy I love that's famous for using a Princeton is Jim Campolongo.
Yeah, and he tours with that thing.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds awesome, man. I mean, of course, he's just an awesome player, but
yeah,
it's a great sound, man.
That's probably my next amp if I ever get one. But well, all right. I guess for all my subscribers, maybe we'll discuss Hendrix next time. I'm gonna have, now that I know how to do this a little better, I'll do a few more. But we really thank you. Everybody's saying thank you, and I appreciate everybody coming this morning.
Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. It's been fun.
And I'll put the link to your, I think at the heading it said rumpelstiltskin.com, but it's rumpelstiltskinpickups.com.
Pickups. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Aaron makes great pickups, and don't break your pickups, but if you ever do, he can fix them too.
Yeah, don't break them.
Well, all right. You have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
You too, Dan. I appreciate you, and everybody is hanging out. Thank you for hanging out, and everyone have a good and safe weekend.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right. See ya.